Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti-vaibhava Swamini Namine. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti-vedanta Swamini Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesh Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Welcome back to the Bhakti-vaibhava Course. So today we are going to deal with the chapter 3 of the second canto, Pure Devotional Service, the Change in Heart. So what is the change in heart, which the title of this chapter speaks about? So the change in heart is from having material desires to lord over the material nature, to enjoy this world, to give pleasure to the Lord, to be predominated by the Lord, not to be the dominators of this world. So, right in the purport, in one of the purport of this verse, for the Akamo Sarva Kamo, Prabhupada gives a hint why such a title is there in this chapter. Prabhupada says, in the previous chapters it has been stated that Bhakti Yoga is the ultimate goal of both Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. And in the same way, in this chapter it is emphatically declared that Bhakti Yoga is the ultimate goal of the different varieties of worship of the different demigods. Bhakti Yoga, thus being the supreme means of self-realization, is recommended here. Everyone must therefore seriously take up the methods of Bhakti Yoga, even though one aspires for material enjoyment or liberation from material bondage. So this is the thing. So from trying to enjoy this material world, trying to merge with the Lord, trying to get siddhis, trying to acquire any kind of strength, name, fame, glories, this is the perverted desire. This is our perverted desire. From this perverted desire, there should be a change in heart to transgress ourselves to please Krishna. So that is why this chapter is entitled Pure Devotional Service, the Change in Heart. Okay. So now we can see here in this chapter, already in the first two chapters, Shukadeva Goswami has established that we have to engage in pure devotional service, or bhakti is the main subject matter. He explained about the Virat Rupa, he explained about the meditation of the Paramatma. After having explained all those things, he in the conclusion to the previous chapter, in the second chapter, we see that he's very clearly establishing about he is giving emphasis to chanting the holy names of the Lord, hearing about the Lord and the Bhagavatam, and through the Bhagavatam, and remembering the Lord as a result of that. So he gave so much emphasis on this. And then also we heard two results that we get from that. One is that what are the two results of engaging in devotional service that Shukadeva Goswami is discussing at the end of the last chapter. So he says that one develops taste for chanting the holy name of the Lord, one develops taste for engaging in devotional service. So these are and also one is fully satisfied in performing, having been engaged in these activities. Now, in this chapter, we may just wonder, what is it? If you see this chapter, there is a lot of discussion on worship of the demigods. So, if you see, a question is being raised here. Although this question is not directly in this chapter, but a question is being raised. What about other desires if someone develops? What about some other desires? Other than developing pure love of God, or other than trying to be engaged in pure devotional service, if someone has got other desires, still can he worship Krishna? Still he can go on with worshipping Krishna? So that's the point here. We can see Shukadeva Goswami is giving here directions. What is the Vedic directions for other desires? What is the position of the demigods in the entire picture? Can you worship the demigods? Do the Vedas entertain worshipping the demigods? So that is why in this chapter we can see what are all the different destinations and who are the right persons to worship for different kinds of desires has been discussed. So we will go through this discussion. So the first 9 verses, we are given the title, Vedic Directions in Worshipping Demigods for Satisfying Material Desires. Okay. And within that first 9 verses, we have some 2 subdivisions, we will see that. Okay. So the very first text Shukadeva Goswami is speaking. Shri Shuka Uvacha Evam etan nigaditam prishtavan yad bhavan mama nranam yan mriyamananam manushyeshu manishinam. So he says, Shukadeva Goswami said, Maharaj Parishit, as you have inquired from me as to the duty of the intelligent man who is on the threshold of death, so I have answered you. You have asked me questions, what should be done? I have answered you all those questions. I have already given you sufficient response of what you have to do, what should be done and all those things. So here Srila Prabhupada points out that Manishinam, that word is being used in this. Therefore, Manishinam meaning thoughtful is particularly used here. A Manishinam person like Maharaj Parikshit must therefore take to the lotus feet of Lord Krishna and fully engage himself in the devotional service of hearing and chanting the holy name and pastimes of the Lord, which are all Harikatamrita. This action is especially recommended when one is preparing for death, because he has already given the conclusion. So now he is expecting Parikshit, because he is an intelligent person, obviously he has to take to this pure devotional service. So that's the point Prabhupada is conveying here. Okay. Now this is the point. Now this is what we discussed at the beginning of the class. Why Shukadeva Goswami suddenly begins to speak on materialistic demigod worship after discussing self and God realization in the previous 2 chapters. In the previous 2 chapters, that is what we have seen. Okay. After having done so much discussion on this subject matter, why he is now speaking about worship of demigods? So now we will put this as a 29th question. We will add to our database of questions that we had in the entire first canto. Now we will put it as 29th question. But where is the question in this shlokas? There are no question. But we are putting it as a question because obviously this is the understanding we get. Because suddenly Shukadeva Goswami is introducing about demigod worship. So we clearly understand that this is to answer the question that may be raised by any of those sages who are sitting there or any spiritual seeker. What about other desires? One may be inquisitive. So Shukadeva Goswami is discussing this. After hearing about the process of transcendental realization that Shukadeva Goswami explains to Maharaj Parikshit, what if the listener replies that his heart is host to other desires? Should he remain on the path of spiritual attainment? Should he still worship and fix his mind only on Krishna? And for achieving material benefits, may he worship demigods? So this is the question that we have raised now. Okay, now it's a long series of verses. What I'm going to do is, I'm not going to read the Sanskrit. Just to save time, I'm just going to read the translation of this 2 to 7. Okay. And now, different desires we have. There is a Vedic directions on worship of the different demigods. Okay. One who desires to be absorbed in the impersonal Brahmajyoti effulgence should worship the master of the Vedas, Lord Brahma or Brihaspati, the learned priest. One who desires powerful sex should worship the heavenly king Indra. And one who desires good progeny should worship the great progenitors called the Prajapatis. One who desires good fortune should worship Durga Devi, be the superintendent of the material world. One desiring to be very powerful should worship fire, and one who aspires only after money should worship the Vasus. One should worship the Rudra incarnations of Lord Shiva if he wants to be a great hero. One who wants a large stock of grain should worship Aditi. One who desires to attain the heavenly planets should worship the sons of Aditi. One who desires a worldly kingdom should worship Vishwadeva. And one who wants to be popular with a general mass of population should worship the Sadhya demigod. One who desires a long span of life should worship the demigods known as the Ashwini Kumaras. And a person desiring a strong built body should worship the earth. One who desires stability in his post should worship the horizon and the earth combined. One who desires to be beautiful should worship the beautiful residents of the Gandharva planet. And one who desires a good wife should worship the Apsaras and the Urvashi society girls of the heavenly kingdom. One who desires domination over others should worship Lord Brahma, the head of the universe. One who desires tangible fame should worship the personality of Godhead. And one who desires a good bank balance should worship the demigod Varuna. If one desires to be a greatly learned man, he should worship Lord Shiva. And if one desires a good marital relation, you should worship the chaste goddess Uma, the wife of Lord Shiva. So here is a big list of desires and the corresponding demigod to be worshipped. That's what is explained in this verse. And Prabhupada in the purport, he speaks about how what is the result of worshipping the demigods, and what is the destination one achieves by worshipping the demigods. So he is pointing out that the actual problems of life will never be solved by simply by worshipping the demigods. Okay, so he says that better to take shelter of the Srimad-Bhagavatam and be intelligent and worship the lotus feet of Lord. So that's what Srila Prabhupada points out in this purport. But what we're going to do is let's remind ourselves from Bhagavad Gita what are all the instructions Krishna has given regarding the worship of the demigods. Okay, so we are going to recollect from Bhagavad Gita chapter 7 some of the instructions that Lord Krishna advises. Okay, even before going to chapter 7, we can remind ourselves how Krishna speaks that by giving an example in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna speaks about it is better to take shelter of one Supreme Lord Sri Krishna rather than taking shelter of several demigods. So, and with simple analogy, Krishna points out this. Krishna says that there are so many different kinds of wells in the villages. So, different wells are there to satisfy different purposes. But all the purposes are served by one river, right? So, Prabhupada also gives in one of the lectures, he gives the example of taking bath in the river. Because river water is always pure and never the water gets accumulated. So, people like to go and take bath in the river, and that one river will serve the purpose of everything. You can wash your clothes, you can take water for drinking, you can bathe there, everything is taken care of in the river. So that example is a good example for us to remind ourselves that it is enough to take shelter of Supreme Lord Sri Krishna rather than taking shelter of various demigods. Okay, that's one point. The fourth chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, what Krishna says, Kankshanta karmanam siddhim yajanta iha devataha shipram hi manushe loke siddhir bhavati karmaja. So Krishna says that to satisfy your material desires, you want to quickly satisfy the material desires, you take to the worship of the demigods. Why? Because they will immediately satisfy, when you engage in fruitive activities, immediately they will satisfy your material desires. So, you go for, people are going for demigod worship. But then again, in the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna gives clear instructions. What is the problem with the demigod worship? Kamais taister hrita jnana prapadhyante anya devataha. Tam tam niyama astaya prakritya niyata swaya. So Krishna says that kamais taistair hrita jnana. So one's intelligence is captured, stolen. Prapadhyante anya devataha. To worship of the, by surrendering to other devatas, one's intelligence is stolen. Then what he says? Tam tam niyama astaya prakritya niyata swaya. So according to one's nature, he follows certain rules and regulations that is required to worship the particular demigods, and in that way he engages in that worship of those demigods. Now, what is that when so who is actually giving the result of that demigod worship, the phalam that he is getting? Who is yo yam yam tanum bhakta shraddhayarchitum icchati tasya tasya chalam shraddham tam eva vidadhamyaham. Krishna says yo yam yam tanum bhakta, whatever demigod that particular devotee worships, the faith that the person he gets from that demigod, actually I am giving that faith, he says that. Then sataya shraddhaya yuktis tasya radhanam ihate labate cha tatak kaman mayaiva vihitan hitam. Then he says that, so with that faith when he worships, sataya shraddhaya yuktya tasya radhanam ihate. So Krishna is only giving him that faith, he is only installing him the faith so that he continues to worship to that demigod. Sataya shraddhaya tasya radhanam ihate labate cha tatak kaman mayaiva vihitan hitam. So whatever benefit he attains, so Krishna says, I only actually, I give that, Krishna says. Then he says that, Krishna clearly points out that, but it is foolishness. Antavattu palam tesham tad bhavati alpamedasam. They are very less intelligent. Why? Antavattu, that palam is very temporary. Happiness that is derived from demigod worship is temporary. Tad bhavati alpamedasam, then devan deva yajo yanti. Bhaktyamam yanti mamapi. Mad bhakta yanti mamapi. Krishna says that those who worship those demigods, their benefits are temporary, and they attain the destination of those demigods, and that destination also, they go to that place and they are also there for a very short time. But those devotees who worship me, they come to me, Krishna says. And he very clearly points out that is, they are less intelligent, he says. And so one may raise the question, sir, why at all Krishna is proposing this demigod worship? The demigod worship is proposed so that somehow or other you try to satisfy your material desires in a dharmic way. You are within the Vedic spectrum. When you are within the Vedic spectrum, gradually you accept some authority. And by accepting authority, there is a gradual purificatory process. You may engage in some yajna, in karma kandya yajna, Indraya namaha, Vayuve namaha. You may say so many things, but actually those are secondary names of Vishnu. Indirectly, you are pleasing the Lord. And also we have an understanding that the demigods are part of his body. They are part of the Lord. But then, okay, what's wrong? I can worship the demigods because they are part of Krishna. So, part of the whole. So, when I worship the part, Krishna, the whole is pleased. But this is your understanding. This is our understanding. But Krishna says something else in the Bhagavad Gita. Avidhi purvakam. This is what Krishna says. So, he says, epyanya devata bhakta yajante mam shraddhayanvitaha tepi mam eva kaunteya yajanti avidhi purvakam. Krishna says that you may engage in such worship, but I don't authorize such worship. And Krishna also very clearly he points out what he points out. He says that Krishna points out that even this bhoktacha prabhurevacha. What he says? The next verse after that. Aham hi sarva yajnanam bhoktacha prabhurevacha natumam api jhananti tatve natas chavantite. He says that I am the bhokta, instead of not serving me, if you are going to engage in other engagement of other yajnas, other service, if you are going to take up worshipping other demigods, very soon you are going to fall down. So Krishna gives his guidance. Krishna also says that this pleasure is temporary, and Krishna is not authorizing direct worship of the demigods. Krishna says that better you worship me, that is beneficial for us. So all these instructions Krishna has already given in the Bhagavad Gita. Nevertheless, the Lord is very merciful. The whole Vedic lore is also very accommodative, because we all have individual desires. We are all individuals. Jiva is independent. So to accommodate the independent desires of the Jiva, the demigod worship is allowed in the Vedic lore. Is it clear? One desiring spiritual advancement should worship Vishnu. Verses 8 and 9, as I mentioned about that. Okay, text 8. One should worship Lord Vishnu or his devotee for spiritual advancement in knowledge and for protection of heredity and advancement of a dynasty. One should worship the various demigods. So, for spiritual advancement, worship of Vishnu. For material advancement, worship demigods. Okay, let's see what Prabhupada says in the purport. The path of religion entails making progress on the path of spiritual advancement, ultimately reviving the eternal relation with Lord Vishnu in his personal effulgence, his localized Paramatma feature, and ultimately his personal feature by spiritual advancement in knowledge. And one who wants to establish a good dynasty and be happy in the progress of temporary body relations should take shelter of the Pitas and the demigods in other pious planets. Such different classes of worshippers of different demigods may ultimately reach the respective planets of those demigods within the universe. But he who reaches the spiritual planets in the Brahmajyoti achieves the highest perfection. So that's the point here. Here again in this verse there is a reference given to, if you want to make spiritual advancement, take to the worship of Vishnu. Then other demigod worshippers, what kind of benefits are given, that is also given. Okay, let's go to text 9. One who desires domination over a kingdom or an empire should worship the Manus. One who desires victory over an enemy should worship the demons. And one who desires sense gratification should worship the moon. But one who desires nothing of material enjoyment should worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, minimize the desires for material enjoyment and worship Vishnu. Prabhupada says in the purport, the Lord has proclaimed that the materialists who desire material enjoyment and thus seek the favor of different demigods, as above mentioned, are not in control of their senses and so give themselves to nonsense. One should therefore not desire any sort of material enjoyment, being sensible enough to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the leaders of nonsensical persons are still more nonsensical because they preach openly and foolishly that one can worship any form of demigod and get the same result. So this we refuted, saying from Krishna's Bhagavad Gita, the Lord how very clearly refuted this statement. So Prabhupada points out how the demigod worship is the same as Vishnu worship is not true by giving the example of Yanti Deva Vrata Devan. Then Srila Prabhupada continues. The conclusion is that one must minimize the desires for material enjoyment, and for this one should worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is described as Param, or beyond anything material. Sripad Shankaracharya has also stated, Narayana Paro Vyaktat. The Supreme Lord is beyond the material encirclement. So now we are going to see little quotes from Srila Prabhupada's lecture in some of these verses. Let me just go there. So Srila Prabhupada very strongly condemned the worship of the demigods. But then also he gives a background how the worship of demigods was allowed. Okay, let's see. Now, please see here. Brahma varchasa kamastu yajeta brahmana patim. Indram indriya kamas. Indriya means senses. Those who are too much lusty simply try to satisfy. The most important indriya is genital, sex. So for them it is recommended that you worship Indra. Indra the demigod. He is number one sexually inclined demigod. He has got eyes over all his body. Shata chakshungshi. These eyes were originally vagina. He was cursed by Gautama Muni that you are fond of vagina, that I curse you that you get all over your body vagina. Then when he surrendered, he began to cry that it will be very much, abominable for me. Then he offered that these vagina may be turned into eyes. Therefore his body is full of eyes. Shata chakshungshi. So those who are too much lusty, lover of the vagina, they may worship Indra. This is the recommendation. Everything is there. If you want vagina instead of Krishna, alright, do it. You have it. So unfortunately, if our student falls a victim of vagina instead of Krishna, that is very regrettable. Then better he worship, instead of Krishna, let him worship Indra. That is the Bhagavata direction. Indram indriya kamastu prajakama prajapatim. Praja, many children, dynasty. Just like aristocratic family. One is working very hard to establish a family. In England, it is very prominent. Lord family, Duke family. And where the rascal is going himself, he does not know. But he is establishing a family. Lord family. You see? Prajakamaha. People want that son, grandson, great-grandson, his son, the family will be filled up with so many. In India, especially the Karmis, they want like that. Sri Aishwarya Prajepsavaha. Sri, beauty, beautiful woman. Sri Aishwarya, wealth and Praja. Praja means children. They are spending their whole time earning money, amass money, huge bank balance. Then his sons are married. The same thing, he begotten so many children by sex. So he is having indulgence to his sons. Alright, you also take this sex indulgence and produce many children. Prajepsavaha. And then grandchildren are also. You also take another. You also produce children. So they are called Prajepsavaha. They are happy to see that he has got many children. Just like Dhritarashtra, he had 100 sons, and the 100 sons had another 100 sons. So he was after how this kingdom should be mine. Son's hand. That is the cause of Kurukshetra war. So Prajepsavaha, Prajakamaha. So there are so many kamas, desires, different people, different kama. Therefore they are all hritagnyanaha. Anyone who is impeded by these kamas, they are less interested, less intelligent. Kamaistaisa hritagnyana. Hritagnyana means one who has lost his intelligence. They are captivated by these kinds of lusty things. Yan maitunani grihameri sukam hitucham. So again, Prabhupada points out that those who are going after these material desires, they are less intelligent. But still less intelligent. The provision is given for those less intelligent people so that they could be within the dharmic path. Or accept some demigod and take up and then pray to the demigod and then make progress. So how you make progress, we will see in another lecture. Prabhupada speaks about that. Very interesting. So how by worshipping demigod somebody will make progress? So what happens, we will see. So the lecture that we read is from Srimad-Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 3, Text 1-3, May 22, 1972, Los Angeles. Now this is another lecture. That is Krishna. That you may be very intelligent to avoid Krishna, the laws of Krishna. But Krishna is more intelligent. He will also cheat you because You wanted to cheat him, so he will also cheat you in such a way that you, beyond your imagination. Yes, that is Krishna. You cannot excel Krishna. You have to be always under him. Even your cheating process, this is Krishna. So take shelter of Krishna and be happy. Thank you. So I put this quote just to clarify the point that sometimes some people, I never want to go near Krishna. But even in the series of verses in the 7th chapter we saw, you foolish fellow, you may think you are worshipping some demigod, but actually your faith on this demigod, your tendency to do the puja for the demigod, actually it is awarded by Krishna. So you may intelligently try to avoid Krishna, you may try to preach atheism, but you fool, actually your intelligence will be completely shattered. So great example, simple example is Hiranyakashipu from the Bhagavatam we can understand. He was trying to be super intelligent. He thought that, I could manipulate things, I could even manipulate Brahma and try to control him and then get such a powerful boon so that Vishnu or no one in this world can touch me. But we know the history, how he died. So that's the point. So this is another lecture. So Prabhupada speaks about what happens, what kind of Krishna is. Generally people do not go to worship Krishna and Vishnu because you cannot ask from Krishna anything which is not good for you. Suppose you pray to Krishna on the seaside, Krishna give me a good fish, I want to catch. Krishna will never fulfill your desire. That is Krishna's mercy. Because Krishna will not give you facility for possessing anything which will ultimately cause your harden. Krishna knows that. If he catches a fish, then he will have to become a fish again. To be caught by some fish. To be caught by the same fish. So why shall he give the facility? You see? So therefore our policy is not to ask anything from Krishna. He knows what is good for me. Simply I have to surrender unto him. That's all. Why shall I bother him? Give me this, give me that. No. Na dhanam, na janam. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Antya. This lecture was Na dhanam, na janam from Sikshashtaka. So this was from the lecture Srimad-Bhagavatam, chapter 3, Canto 2, chapter 3, text 2 to 7, May 24, 1972, Los Angeles. Okay. Okay, now you will see in this particular purport, Prabhupada is again giving a direction about the demigod worship. Worship the demigod, indirectly worshipping Krishna, but avidhi purvakam, without regulative principles. Yajanti avidhi purvakam. The same example, if you want to touch me, so the regulative principle is that you have to touch the lotus feet of your spiritual master. Not that you touch his head and do like that. You can say, I am touching you. Oh, that's not the way. You have to touch according to the regulative principle. Similarly, those who are nonsense, alright, you touch the hair of your spiritual master. If you cannot touch the lotus feet, then you touch. Gives a chance to come in touch. So this demigod worship is an example given. Demigod worship is recommended in the Vedas. At least they should gradually understand who is this demigod. This is the point. How many of them are doing this? People are worshipping demigods, but nobody is thinking. Like Prabhupada says here, who is this demigod? Why are we worshipping him? Where from he has got this power? Then, when one can understand that this Indra, Chandra, and Surya, and Diti, Aditi, and fire, Lord Shiva, they are all different departmental heads of Krishna's government. The real king is Krishna. To understand that. Not that then one could derive all the benefits from one department. No, the different departments are recommended. If you want this, you approach this. If you want this, you approach this. In the conclusion, it will be said that whatever you want, you go to Krishna. Your all desires will be fulfilled. Yasmin Vicshate sarvamidam vikshatam bhavati. If one can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the controller of all controllers, one can understand everything else. What is the idea of demigod worship in one simple quote? Similarly, marriage, what is the meaning of marriage? Everyone can have sex without marriage. So what it means, marriage? Marriage means restriction, that's all. That you have sex but a particular selected woman. That's no more. That's all. That is marriage. So all these Vedic rules are there. Shastra says, Loke vavayamisha madhya seva nitya hi jantor nahi tatra chodana. Why this demigod worship? Marriage, these are prescribed. Why this demigod worship? Marriage, these are prescribed. They are prescribed to stop it, not to encourage it. So that is the idea. Nice point, no? This Prabhupada, how nicely he puts it. But the foolish person, they say, well, it is in the Shastra. Why shall I not do? Therefore, Lord Buddha, when he appeared, he wanted to stop this animal killing. Because this rascal will show the evidence that here is sanctioned by the Vedas to kill an animal before Goddess Kali. Why you stop? Therefore, he said, I don't care for your Vedas because his only idea was to stop this animal killing. Okay, so now we got an idea why the demigod worship is permitted in the Bhagavatam, why the demigod worship is allowed. So gradually from that demigod worship one has to raise himself to the worship of Krishna, knowing Krishna to be the source of everything. But how many of them are ready to do it? It's a very difficult process. So instead of becoming atheist, it's better to be a demigod worshipper. So hoping that one will use the until someday there will be a light that you will ask the question, oh, from where he is getting. Yat pada pallava yugam vinidaya kumbha dhandve pranama samaye saganadi raja. Oh, Ganesh ji, he is getting his strength from putting his tumulus. This what do you call in Sanskrit? The what do you call that? In English it's called tumuli or tumulus. In Sanskrit, Yat pada pallava yugam vinidaya kumbha dvandve pranama samyesa ganadi raja. Yat pada pallava kumbha. Yeah, that's what, because he puts the head, and that's what is being given here, the translation. So he puts it and he derives the strength from the Lord. So that's the point. So that is what is the whole thing here. Now we will come to the important section of this series of verses in this particular chapter. This is a very famous verse of the Bhagavatam, which gives us the direction who can worship Lord Krishna, or is there a restriction for someone who has got material desires? He cannot worship Krishna. This verse answers all the questions. Intense worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead by associating with the Bhagavata is recommended for one who is without or full of material desires. Verses 10 to 11. So in this verse 10, the intense worship of Krishna is suggested, and in verse number 11, the suggestion is given that better to take to the worship of Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, even if you have material desires. So let's see. Okay, let's recite this verse. Akama sarva kamo va moksha kama udaradihi tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. Akama, one who has transcended all material desires. Sarva kamaha, one who has a sum total of material desires. Va, either. Moksha kamaha, one who desires liberation. Udaradihi, with broader intelligence. Tivrena, with great force. Bhakti yogena, by devotional service to the Lord. Yajeta, should worship. Purusham, the Lord. Param, the supreme whole. Okay, Prabhupada's purport. Bhakti yoga is the means for all perfection, for one with or without desire or full of desires. So please pay attention to this purport. Bhakti yoga is especially stressed here as the means of all perfection. A person who has broader intelligence, whether he be full of all material desire, without any material desire, or desiring liberation, must by all means worship the supreme whole, the personality of Godhead. Okay. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, is described in the Bhagavad Gita as Purushottama, or the Supreme Personality. It is He only who can award liberation to the impersonalists by absorbing such aspirants in the Brahma Jyoti, the bodily rays of the Lord. The Brahma Jyoti is not separate from the Lord, as the glowing sun rays are not independent of the sun disk. Therefore, one who desires to merge into the Supreme Impersonal Brahma Jyoti must also worship the Lord by Bhakti Yoga, as recommended here in the Srimad-Bhagavatam. Why there is a talk about Brahma Jyoti here? Why Srila Prabhupada is talking about the impersonals? Moksha Kama, yes. Because there is a discussion on Moksha Kama, so he is speaking about that. Okay. In the previous chapters, it has been stated that Bhakti Yoga is the ultimate goal of. So I'm not going to read this. We already read this. Okay. So I'm skipping that. I'm going to the next slide.
In the previous chapter.
Okay, in this previous chapters I already read in the introduction, so I'm just skipping that. Now I'm going to Akama. Now Prabhupada is further, now he's going to discuss the different desires. Akama, Moksha already he said, then Sarvakama, everything we'll discuss. Now Akama. And Akama is one who has no material desires. A living being, naturally being the part and parcel of the Supreme Whole, Purusham Purnam, has his natural function to serve the Supreme Being. Just as the parts and parcels of the body or the limbs of the body are naturally meant to serve the complete body. Desireless means therefore not to be inert like the stone, but to be conscious of one's actual position and thus desire satisfaction only for the Supreme Lord. Many times in Srila Prabhupada's purport, consistently we see from Bhagavad Gita, Nectar of Instruction, Nectar of Devotion. This point Prabhupada makes it several times. Even in the Chaitanya Charitamrita purport for the famous verse, what's that? Bhukti Kami Mukti Kami Shakala Ashanta Krishna Bhakta Nishkama Ateva Shanta. So when we say that Nishkama means without any desire, what is it? That there's only one desire, the desire of serving Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. So that is what Srila Jiva Goswami is here. That's what Prabhupada pointing out here. And Srila Prabhupada is pointing out Srila Jiva Goswami and he is explaining what is the desirelessness. Srila Jiva Goswami has explained this desirelessness as Bhajaniya Parama Purusha Sukamatra Swasukatvam in his Sandarbha. This means that one should feel happy only by experiencing the happiness of the Supreme Lord. This means that one should feel happy only by experiencing the happiness of the Supreme Lord. It looks like suddenly when you just look at it, it looks like a dogmatic statement. Or, in the sense, one should feel happy only by experiencing the happiness of the Supreme Lord. What is this? Why I cannot be happy by doing something else? I would like to just go on a bike along the drone. Nowadays people they have got a new drone. This drone can, you go in the bike and it can cover up to 12 kilometers of range. So there is a great craze. So they are driving the bike and the drone is tracing them. They're traveling. So I'm feeling very happy. Right. You keep going some more time, then you will have trouble. You will not be able to see. There will be so many different difficulties you will have. Either there will be no gas in the car, or the drone will hit somewhere. Although they say that the drone's technology is very very good that it will not hit anywhere. And then again, your pleasure. The point that I'm trying to make here is the pleasure is for a short time. You will not be happy. Soon you will be frustrated. It's like this. Anything we can take in this material world, there will be frustration. Why like this? Why the frustration is there like this? Because the nature of the jiva is to serve the Supreme Lord. Being is part and parcel. Mame vamso jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. But then again also, elsewhere in the Padma Purana also it is mentioned. Srila Jiva Goswami also points out this many times in several places, that the jiva's nature, the nature of the jiva, jiva bhuta harereva na anya seva kadachana. He says that. The nature of jiva is always to remain as the eternal servant of Krishna. So, whatever you may try to do, in whatever way you may try to enjoy this world, you will face unhappiness. That's why the statement here is, there is absolutely no dogmatism or nothing biased here. It's a perfect statement Srila Prabhupada quoting here about the definition of happiness, which can be experienced only in the service of the Lord. That will only make us happy. Prabhupada also gives such a nice example, right? He gives an example of fish out of water. When the fish is out of water, it tries in various ways to enjoy this world. You offer the fish nice gulab jamuns, you offer the fish some nice sandesh, or any preparation, anything. Fish is going to die in a very short span of time because that's not its food. That's not its actual place of enjoyment. Right? Simple example we can understand. That's why also, how many examples? Prabhupada also gives the example of you try to take gulab jamun, instead of putting it in the mouth, you try to put it in the ears. You will not be happy. Rather, you will have suffering. So, we should know what is the proper methodology by which we can be happy. Okay, now let's continue this purport. This intuition of the living being is sometimes manifested even during the conditioned stage of living being in the material world. And such intuition is expressed in the manner of altruism, philanthropy, socialism, communism, etc. by the undeveloped minds of less intelligent persons. So, there is a natural tendency. The service mentality is there because our nature is to do service. But when we are less intelligent, when our intelligence is carried away, we try to do service, We try to be with someone. Happiness we try to derive in company of someone. So we try, Prabhupada points out here, altruism, philanthropy, socialism. So many things we try, but we are not able to be happy. In the mundane field, such an outlook of doing good to others in the form of society, community, family, country or humanity is a partial manifestation of the same original feeling. So the original feeling is there, which is prema. Here when it comes here, it becomes perverted and becomes kama. So Prabhupada is pointing out here, the gopis loved the Lord without any return, and this is the perfect exhibition of the akama spirit. Then Prabhupada points out the kama spirit. The kama spirit, or the desire for one's own satisfaction, is fully exhibited in the material world, whereas the spirit of akama is fully exhibited in the spiritual world. Thoughts of becoming one with the Lord or being merged in the Brahma Jyoti can also be exhibitions of the Kama spirit if their desires for one's own satisfaction, to be free from material miseries. So that's the problem with the merging with the Brahma Jyoti, because you are having a selfish desire to enjoy separate from the Lord. This is the separate from Krishna. This is the major problem. Any desire which is separate from Krishna is the problematic desire. Okay. A pure devotee does not want liberation so that he may be relieved from the miseries of life. So now Prabhupada goes on to explain how from Kama we can develop this attitude of Akama. Even without so-called liberation, a pure devotee aspires for the satisfaction of the Lord, influenced by the Kama spirit. Arjuna declined to fight in the Kurukshetra battlefield because he wanted to save his relatives for his own satisfaction. But being a pure devotee, he agreed to fight on the instruction of the Lord, because he came to his senses and realized that satisfaction of the Lord at the cost of his own satisfaction was his prime duty. Thus he became Akama. That is a perfect stage of a perfect living being. So when we just dovetail our desire with the desire of the Lord, or abide by the desire of the Lord, then our desire is purified and then we become Akama. We try to satisfy Krishna. So Prabhupada concludes the purport saying one has to have a broader outlook. So what is this Udaradihi? People with desires for material enjoyment worship small demigods, and such intelligence is condemned in the Bhagavad Gita as Ritagnyana. So but then Prabhupada says one with a broader outlook. What he does? Under the circumstances, one with a broader outlook, even with a desire for material enjoyment or for liberation, should take to the worship of the Lord directly. And everyone, whether an Akama or Sakama or Mokshakama, should worship the Lord with greater expedience. This implies that Bhakti Yoga may be perfectly administered without any mixture of Karma and Jnana. As the unmixed sun rays are very forceful and are therefore called Tivra. Similarly, unmixed Bhakti Yoga of hearing, chanting, etc. may be performed by one and all regardless of inner motive. Prabhupada gives example of, for the Tivra, he is giving example of what? Sun rays. So when sun rays is not touched by the clouds, then when that sun rays comes and hits us, how the sun ray will be? Very sharp. No? So Prabhupada gives that when you intensely worship the Supreme Lord, that is going to yield you pure devotion. That's the hint given here. So have a broader outlook, be a broader person, don't be miser. Then I have material desires. Doesn't matter. Take to the intense worship of Krishna consciousness. Now let's see what. So not that you just all that. Now we will see some of the quotes of Prabhupada, and also you will see the commentaries by Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, and also the commentary of Srila Jiva Goswami. And try to understand how merciful is Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, how he can accommodate anyone in his service, and how he can purify. So we will see all those things. Here we can see the Akama, the word Akama. Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur points out that Akama means, he says Krishna Kama. How is that? Akama means Krishna Kama. Krishna Kama means only trying to please Krishna. So nice, he says that what Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita regarding the Akshara A. Aksharanam Akarosmi. Okay? Krishna says Aksharanam Akarosmi. He says I am, is myself, I am that. So he says Akama. He says it's Krishna Kama. he says that. No, if you're not Krishna Kama, then you will have Sarva Kama, he says. So that's what he says. That's how he says. So if you see in the commentary here, the word Sarva Kama includes all desires in general. So Moksha Kama is mentioned separately in order to cut down people's thought that they are without desire. Or the word can indicate that the person desiring liberation is even more filled with desire than the person desiring material comforts, since it follows directly after the word Sarva Kamaha. Nice, no? He says Sarva Kamaha. No, Sarva Kama will include all the desire, but he is here separately they are showing Moksha Kama. Sukadeva Goswami is saying Moksha Kama is showing separately. Why? To mention that you this even more. So that's why we say the last snare of Maya. What is the last snare of Maya? To merge with God, to become one with God. Correct, isn't it? So he points out like this. So those desires are shown to be stronger in the Jnanis engaged in destroying the suffering of their samsara and anxious for the experience of the happiness of Brahman, than in the karmis who desire to enjoy temporary suffering and gain temporary happiness of Swarga by worshipping Devatas. So he says, even if somebody has got a desire to merge with the Lord, even if somebody wants to go to Swargaloka, you also take up the worship of Krishna. Prabhupada in one of the lectures said, "You rascal, you also take to the worship of Krishna." Now we will see that. Okay. So here Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is giving some more verses from other places, and also from elsewhere from Bhagavatam. He is giving the quotes. So he says that Nata yoni sahasreshu yeshu vrajamyaham teshu teshvachyuta bhaktir achyutastu sadatvayi. Wherever I may wander, O Master, among thousands of species of life, in each situation may I have firmly fixed devotion to you, O Achyuta. So now we will see some of the verses he is quoting, that the mood of a devotee, you can see here that he just wants to take worship of only Vishnu, because the worship of Vishnu is always the transcendental platform. There is no question of being covered by the gunas. You are always never attacked by the influence of the material world. You will always be in the pure platform. So that's why some of the devotees are praying that whatever may be the situation, wherever even I make a mistake or something, please somehow or other let me be in the association of devotees. Let me be engaged in your service. That's what is being pointed out. So now the next verse says, Swakarma pala nirdishtam yam yonim vrajamyaham tasyam rishikesha tvai bhaktir dridhastu me. May I have firm devotion to you, whatever birth I take allotted by my karmas. So whatever may be my birth, but let me always have your remembrance. This is what a devotee prays. Because he knows this is what is the most safest path. Tanna samadhishopayam yenate charanabjayoho smrtiryatanam viramed apisangsaratam here. Please tell us how we may constantly remember your lotus feet, though we continue in the cycle of birth and death in this world. So again we saw in the last chapter of the first canto, where Parikshit Maharaj also, he is seeking for the association of devotees. Whatever may be my next birth, I seek your association so that I will always have shelter of your friendship, my dear Lord. So that's what Maitryastu sarvatra namod vijebhyaha. So he is offering obeisances to the Brahmanas, and then he says that let me have always the association of devotees. Now we will see Srila Jiva Goswami also in several places in the Sandarbhas has pointed out some interesting things. And before we go into the Jiva Goswami's commentary, I would like to see a couple of quotes from Srila Prabhupada's lecture on this. Prabhupada talks about Sarvakamaha. Sarvakamaha means all kinds of material desires. So Prabhupada very nicely points out in one of the lecture about the Sarvakamaha. So the Sarvakamaha. So up to the end of life, all these politicians we have seen, Gandhi in our country, Jawaharlal Nehru, he was attacked, heart attack several times. And doctor says, within a week you will have to go away. Still he was going to the hillside to recoup his health. And when he was on the point of death, he was brought to New Delhi and died. So up to the point of death, he was thinking that I must remain a prime minister, otherwise the whole thing will be lost. In my absence, if I am not on the seat, then everything will be lost. This is Maya. Gandhi was thinking like that. He agitated Prabhupada spoke about Nehru, now he is speaking about Gandhi. Gandhi was thinking like that. He agitated his political movement against the British rule. So Britishers went away. I requested him that now you have got Swarajya. Now, I requested, Prabhupada is saying I requested. And you are so respectable in this world, you take this propaganda to preach Bhagavad Gita. No, he will still stick to these politics. Unless he was killed, So this is the propensity. Sarvakamaha. There is no end of their desires. No end. They are called Sarvakamaha. So we have been seeing in the last 2 days in the Bhagavatam section classes that has been happening, how Saubhari Muni had a realization that he was trying to satisfy all his desires. Desires are never satisfied. It's just like a dushpurena analena cha. Right, isn't it? The more you try to satisfy your lust, the more it becomes wild. It can never be satisfied. He had 50 wives, but he was not happy. Something was missing. Always he felt something is missing. So, dear devotees, so let's not have an infatuation. Let's not be in the utopia world. Utopia world? Utopia world means there is a kind of an imaginary world, that such a world can never exist, where we can always remind. Only the films we can see that. After that, after this, the love affair, they eternally live together. Only the text you can see. Many times after the movie is over, you will see, both the hero and heroine will be with the hands together. They will be singing some song and then walking together. That you see only the film. But in reality, that's not the case. So we have to understand that. That's what Prabhupada is pointing to. Sarva Kamaha. It's all it's all actually bewildering, it's all cheating. Okay. This is also from Srimad-Bhagavatam lecture given by Srila Prabhupada on same verse that we are dealing with now. May 28, 1972, Los Angeles. You see, this chance is there. Even with your karma, desires, you execute devotional service, make connection with the Supreme Lord. Your time will come. You will become akama. No more. Your time will come. Therefore, it is recommended not that sarva kamaha goes to Krishna and simply bothers him. Give me this, give me that, give me this. No. Let him talk like that. Give me this, give me that. Krishna will see to that. But by devotional service, if he comes in contact with Krishna seriously, then time will come. He will become akamaha. So before Srila Prabhupada speaking this, Prabhupada gave a whole big explanation about how Dhruva Maharaj had his own desire, strong desire he had to conquer to get a place even bigger than Brahma's position. He had such a strong desire. When Narada Muni came and gave advice to him, he said that, I'm sorry Narada Muni, I'm not interested in your Brahminical advice. I want to go for this. You tell me how can I go for this. So then Narada Muni saw, then he said, okay, this boy is so determined, let us give him the mantra of chanting Vishnu's name. So he gave this Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya mantra, and then he chanted. He was 6 months Tivra Bhakti. He had full focus, complete attention, not on anything else, controlled his desires, controlled his eating, sleeping, everything he controlled in full focus, engaged in Ashtanga Yoga. Then he tried to please Krishna by that, Vishnu by that, and then after that what happened. Then finally he said that I'm just looking for a broken glass. I'm just looking for a broken glass, whereas your lotus feet, the service to your lotus feet is like diamond. Api Divya Ratnam, he says, right? So that's the whole point. Okay. Okay, now we'll continue this. So give me this. Okay, Prabhupada continues. But by devotional service, if he comes in contact with Krishna seriously, then time will come. He will become akamaha. Therefore, it is recommended, not that it is advised, that you go to Krishna and ask all nonsense from him. That is not pure devotion. Pure devotion is akamaha, nothing. Na dhanam, na janam, na sundarim, kavitam va jagadisha kamaye. So it is recommended here only that a devotee, even he is foolish in the beginning, to ask from Krishna all material facilities. Still, when he is engaged in devotional, when he comes to the perfectional stage, or when he comes in contact with a pure devotee, he gives up all this nonsense, and as a pure devotee, he simply engages himself without any return, without any profit in the service of the Lord. So that's the whole key. So we are in the second canto, third chapter of the Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam, right from the beginning, is establishing Krishna to be the Supreme Personality of God. In the third chapter of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, Canto 1, there is a verse which speaks about that. Yetan nanavataranam nidhanam bijam avyayam yasyam shangshena srijyante devatiryan naradhayaha. This form, the second manifestation of the Purusha, is the source and indestructible seed of multifarious incarnation within the universe. From the particles and portions of this form, different living entities like demigods, men and others are created. I'm specifically quoting this verse to show that all the demigods, everyone, the origin is from the Supreme Lord. Okay. Now, after having said that, again in the third chapter of the Gita, Krishna also establishes Ete Chamsa Kala Pumsa, and by showing he is the source of all incarnations. And again in 1.3.27, here also very clearly it is being established. Rishayo Manavo Deva Manuputra Mahaujasha Kala Sarve Harer Eva Saprajapataya Smritaha. Krishna also in the Gita says, Aham Adithi Devanam, he says. Krishna says, Aham Sarvasya Prabhu Matta Sarvam Pravartate. What else Krishna says? That he is the supreme, everything is coming from him. Krishna says, Mattah Parataram Nanyat Kinchidasti Dhananjaya. Everything, I am there, I am holding everything. Krishna says, I am the topmost truth, I am the supreme truth, there is nothing superior to me. So there are so many places Krishna has established that he is the supreme. So after having explained all those things, and also he has established that devotional service is the topmost process to be engaged in. Now in this series of verses, from verses 2 to 9, Sri Jiva Goswami is also pointing out that now the demigod worship has been pointed out. Now, we so far we heard why demigod worship has been suggested by Jiva Goswami. Now, Sridhara Swami, he is pointing out to the word akamaha. What does it mean? Here the word akamaha means pure devotee. And we also saw the other perspective. Akama means Krishna kama. Of course, we are only trying to please Krishna. So that he is a pure devotee. Sarva kamaha means one who has all desires, whether those mentioned before or the other desires. And Purusham Param means the perfect and limitless supreme person. Very clearly the supreme person is indicated. That's the whole point. Okay. Now, there are some verses that is being quoted from the Mahabharata. So this is the one. The devotees enjoy a great festival of service to Lord Vishnu. So just before I go to that, there is also another quote by Sridhara Swami. He says, Tivrena means firmly, naturally and easily. The devotee's desires are automatically fulfilled. What Srila Prabhupada says, word to word, Tivrena, can you just see? Tivrena means serious. What Prabhupada puts?
With great force.
With great force, yeah. Tivrena, with great force. That's why the analogy is also there, you know. And the sunlight, when it comes with great force. It's very sharp. When it hits us, it is very sharp. So that's the whole thing. So, yeah. Okay, now let's continue. In the Mahabharata, it is said, the devotees enjoy a great festival of service to Lord Vishnu. They serve him and meditate on him, give charity to him, and offer the food in their homes to him. In this way, they attain a result even the demigods headed by Indra cannot attain. So there are several verses he is referring to show the supremacy of service to Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. Okay. The Supreme Lord himself said to Sri Kardama Muni, the Lord continued, my dear Rishi, O leader of the living entities, for those who serve me in devotion by worshipping me, especially persons like you who have given up everything unto me, there is never any question of frustration. So we will see the different quotes, how by taking complete worship of Supreme Lord, everybody is hankering for happiness. Here there is an assurance given in a different way, that one will never be frustrated. Wow, really? No frustration at all. In material world, we are often frustrated, isn't it? But in the worship of Vishnu, we will never be frustrated. And also another point that is being made here is that apart from the Lord satisfying one's desires, he also bestows pure devotional service. This is another great glory of engagement in the service of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. Okay. And by such a desire, there will be no consequence. That means what? You will not get reaction. Your desire will be purified. So as a result of the purification of desire, you will not engage in such a desire, so that by that desire you will not have to take birth again, or you will not be interested in trying to acquire some material assets and like that. So the Lord will purify us to such an extent. Okay. So therefore, you please engage in the worship of the Lord. Yajeta Purusham Param Tivrena Bhakti Yogena. So he says. Now, here there is a gradation he is discussing about. So who is higher, the pure devotees or one who yearns for impersonal liberation? The answer is given in the words. A person full of material desires, Sarvakama, should still worship the personality of Godhead. That is the final conclusion. So here it is. So if even a person who is fully, having material desires, a person without any desires, still the worship of the Supreme Lord, the devotion service is prescribed. Which means that this, from just by logical understanding, we can come to a conclusion that the moksha kama is not by worshipping or merging the Brahmajyoti or impersonal worship is not proper. He's pointing out like that. Okay. Srila Jiva Goswami is also establishing that of all, there are so many worships. In the Vedas, there are so many different kinds of worship. Worship is mentioned. And we also know the Vedas, we can classify the Vedas into 3 subject matters. What are those?
Jnana, Karma,
Okay.
Upasana.
Okay. But also we can view the Vedas from 3 aspects. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu very much points out that there are 3 subject matters of understanding.
Matter, spirit and control.
Yeah, that is there, but I'm trying to explain that there are 3 subject matters required for us to make progress in spiritual life. So in Vedas also, we look for these 3 subject matters. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu very much establishes that. Yes, Sambandha, Abhidaya and Prayojana. Sambandha establishes who we are, what is this material world, what is our relationship with the Supreme Lord, What is the Lord's position? And how he is different from us? Jada Jada Bedam, Jada Jiva Bedam, Jiva Jiva Bedam, Jiva Bhagavan Bedam, Jada Bhagavan Bedam, all those things we saw. So all those Vedas are, you get to know in the Sambandha Jnana. So those informations are there in the Vedas. And then once you get a proper clear Sambandha, what is next? Abhideya. What is the process? So what is the perfect process? Whom to worship? Already that's established by Sambandha. So that Abhideya Tattva, or the proper Abhideya, is Vishnu worship. So that Jiva Goswami is establishing. Sri Jiva Goswami is pointing out that. Okay. Here, now, by quoting this verse, he says, the Supreme Personality of God had said, by the influence of time, the transcendental sound of Vedic knowledge was lost at the time of annihilation. Therefore, when the subsequent creation took place, I spoke the Vedic knowledge to Brahma, because I myself am the religious principles enunciated in the Vedas. Lord, so now I'm going to read the purport also. Some here and there we will have some comments also. Okay. Lord Krishna explains to Uddhava that although many processes and concepts of spiritual realizations are described in the Vedas ultimately recommend devotional service to the Supreme Lord. So this is the point. Lord Krishna is the reservoir of all pleasure, and his devotees directly enter into the Lord's Ladini, or pleasure-giving potency. Somehow or other, one must fix one's mind in Lord Krishna, and that is not possible without devotional service. One who has not developed his attraction to Lord Krishna cannot restrain the senses from inferior engagements. Since other Vedic processes do not actually award Lord Krishna to the practitioner, they cannot offer the highest benefit in life. So, the transcendental sound of the Vedas is itself the highest evidence, but one whose senses and mind are entangled in sense gratification and mental speculation, and whose heart is therefore covered by material dust, cannot directly receive the transcendental Vedic message. Thus, one cannot appreciate the exalted position of devotional service to the Lord. Simple, no? Bhogeshwarya prasaktanam taya apasita chetasam vyavasayatmika buddhihi samadhauna vidiyate. He is carried away, his mind is gone. I want to enjoy this, I want that, I want that. Hey, Vishnu Bhakti. Vishnu Bhakti, put it on the side. But, I want this, I want to go to the US, I want to acquire this land, I want this post. Mind is samadhauna vidiyate, gone. So those people are not able to understand also the message of the actual final message of the Vedas. So how do they get the mercy? How does it click? We will see. Okay. Srila Jiva Goswami has already explained the other processes, by Virat Rupa, by maybe even by you want to go through the process of Gyan, you go through the process of karma, everything he has explained. Now, a person, why he is sticking to such kind of processes? Because he is trying to satisfy his petty material desires, and what he does, also there may be some offenses also that may be committed. When somebody commit offenses, he will never be able to make progress. So, but the safest path is to take to the path of pure devotional service. So that's what Shukadeva Goswami is also pointing out. Now, how the Lord is, since we saw this Akama Sarvakamova, now we will see an amazing verse wherein Sri Krishna, worship of Sri Krishna is confirmed as the topmost worship. And also we can see the great nature of the Lord. See, the Lord has got some special qualities. For example, Lord Krishna, he has his own sweetness. His aura is so wonderful. His smell is wonderful. Then there are 7 things that is mentioned by Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur in Madhurya Kadamini. We will try to come to that. So I'm just recollecting some things. So yeah, his form is all attractive. The smell from his body is all attractive. His speech is attractive. His mercy is attractive. His audarya, his generosity is attractive. There are so many attractions with Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. Now we will see here with this purport how much the Lord is merciful. We will see that now here. Srimad-Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 19, Text 27. Satyam dishatyartitamartito nrinam naivartado yat punarartitayatah swayam vidhatte bhajatam anichchatam ichchapidhanam nijapada pallavam. Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead fulfills the material desires of a devotee who approaches him with such motives, but he does not bestow benedictions upon the devotee. That will cause him to demand more benedictions again. He is very intelligent. He will not give such satisfied benediction, because any material benediction will never satisfy the soul. And when the soul is not satisfied, what he will do? Again he will come and ask, can you give me this, can you give me that? So the Lord will not give him. However, the Lord willingly gives a devotee shelter at his own lotus feet. Swayam vidhatte bhajatam anichatam ichapidhanam nijapada pallavam. And that shelter satisfies all his desires. That is the Supreme Personality's special mercy. Okay? Now we will see how the special mercy is working. Prabhupada's purport is amazing to this verse. So Prabhupada is quoting Akama Sarva Kamova, and in translation he speaks about that. Now Prabhupada says, in this way not only will the devotee's desires be fulfilled, but the day will come when he will have no other desire than to serve the lotus feet of the Lord. One who engages in the service of the Lord with some motive is called Sakama Bhakta. And one who serves the Lord with any motive, without any motives, is called an Akama Bhakta. Krishna is so merciful that he turns a Sakama Bhakta into an Akama Bhakta. A pure devotee, an Akama Bhakta, who has no material motives, is satisfied simply to serve the lotus feet of the Lord. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. Yam ladbha chaparam labham manyate nadikam tataha. If one engages in the service of the lotus feet of the Lord, he does not want anything more. Nadikam tataha. Na adikam tataha. For whom? Who has completely satisfied by that, by attaining that transcendental state. The Lord is so kind even to Sakama Bhakta, a motivated devotee, that he satisfies desires in such a way that one day he becomes an Akama Bhakta. Dhruva Maharaja, for example, became a Bhakta with the motive of getting a better kingdom than that of his father, but finally became an Akama Bhakta and said to the Lord, Swamin Kritartosmi Varamna Yache. My dear Lord, I am very satisfied simply to serve your lotus feet. I do not want any material benefits. Sometimes it is found that a small child eats dirty things, but his parents take away dirty things and offer him a sandesha or some other sweet meal. Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur also is giving the same example. Sometimes we can see, child will be very much interested. Many times we can see small kids, they'll just go, they'll be so interested to take the mud and put it in the mouth. And the mother will come and bang, sometimes she may bang. Even if she does like that, child will not know. She likes to always try something new specifically. So mother will just, put in his mouth any sweet, some gulab jamun or sandesh or whatever. And then the child will completely forget that muddy taste and it will relish. So similarly, the devotees who aspire for material benedictions are compared to such children. The Lord is so kind that he takes away their material desires and gives them the highest benediction. I just remember this example always. It's a very interesting one. Gokul Ru always gives this example. Sometimes it's very funny when you are, when you're a small boy, you're licking your hand, your finger you're licking. And when you're, let's imagine a 14-year-old boy sitting in front of us and then licking the hand. It looks so funny, so odd. So when we go in front of the Lord and then we ask for, my dear Lord, can you give me this? Can you give me that? Can you give me this? Can you give me that? The Lord looks at the particular person who is offering prayers like this only. He's coming in front of the Lord and then he's just putting the finger and then it's disgusting to see. The Lord is not pleased when someone is asking that. But the Lord knows this is so foolish. So sometimes what the Lord does, that's what is mentioned here. So devotees who aspire for material benedictions are compared to such children. The Lord is so kind that he takes away those material desires and gives them the highest benediction. Therefore, even for material motives, one should not worship anyone other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One must fully engage himself in the devotional service of the Lord, so that all his desires will be fulfilled, and at the end he can go back home, back to Godhead. This is explained in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela, chapter 22, text 37 to 39 and 41 as follows. So here you can peacefully read it afterwards, the shloka and the purport. But here Prabhupada himself is summarizing in the purport, so we will see that. Anyakami, a devotee may desire something other than service to the lotus feet of the Lord. Yadi kare krishnere bhajan. But if he engages in Lord Krishna's service, na magiteha krishna tare dena swacharan. Krishna gives him shelter at his lotus feet, even though he does not aspire for it. Krishna kahe. The Lord says, Ama bhaje. He is engaged in my service. Mage vishaya sukha. But he wants the benefits of material sense gratification. Amrita chadi visha mage. He says, such a devotee is like a person who asks for poison instead of nectar. E bhada murka. That is his foolishness. ami vigya, but I am experienced, Krishna says. E murke vishaya kene diva. Why should I give such a foolish person the dirty things of material enjoyment? Swacharana he says, I will give my, it would be better for me to give him shelter at my lotus feet. Vishaya bulaiva, I shall cause him to forget all material desires. Kama lagi Krishna bhoje, if one engages in the service of the Lord for sense gratification. Paya Krishna rase, the result is that he ultimately gets a taste for serving the lotus feet of the Lord. Kama chadi dasha haite haya abhilash. He then gives up all material desires and wants to become an eternal servant of the Lord. Just today morning we heard the example of Purandara Das, correct? Who was completely a materialistic person. But somehow by the mercy of his wife, she was always praying to the Lord, somehow or other make my husband a pure devotee of the Lord. She was praying. It's a long story, I'm not going to speak about that. But there are several examples in the scriptures that he became such an ardent devotee. He goes on to sing so many beautiful songs. He composed several songs in glory of the Lord, In fact, the deity, Udupi Krishna, he turned for him, right? That's for Kanakadas, correct? Anyway, the Lord is so merciful. So that's the whole point, that the Lord He can make this transition in us if we just stick to His lotus feet. Vishaya chadiya sairase majiya mukhe bolo hari hari. We have to give the sense gratification, but even if we are struggling in trying to give the sense gratification, but if we strictly take to this process of Krishna consciousness, have hope that yes, my heart is overflowing with material desires, but let me chant, let me submit myself, let me surrender, let me follow the instructions of the previous acharyas, then there is a hope that we may make progress. Okay. Srila Jiva Goswami is quoting a few more verses to confirm that. Again, some of them who are worshipping demigod for several years, sometimes it's very difficult. Specifically in India, we see there are so many people right from young age going to Sabarimala. Some are Ganesh worshippers, some are worshippers of Durga, some are worshippers of Shiva. So there are so many worshippers. Sometimes when we have to tell the real truth, what Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, when we give this message, sometimes some people have they are able to hear, okay, Krishna is supreme, he is the proprietor. Sometimes they have a feeling, maybe if I worship only Krishna, maybe this demigod will be upset, or my Kula Devata will be upset. There are several verses which also shows that no need to worry about worshipping the demigods. Krishna himself in the Gita has already established this Avidi Purvakam and is not intelligent. And now there are some verses where the demigod himself they are saying that what we have to do. So we will see that. And also here this verse which we are going to see now is Srila Jiva Goswami nicely is pointing out how just by worshipping Supreme Lord, that in itself is enough, no need to worship the demigods. Okay. Now here we see here, he is now quoting from Skanda Purana, the conversation between Brahma and Narada. When the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead, who carries in his hands a conch shell, wheel, club and lotus flower, is worshipped, certainly all other demigods are worshipped automatically. Because Hari, the personality of Godhead, is all pervading. So okay, even before I continue to read another verse, do you remember any verse from the Bhagavatam which says that it is enough to worship the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna? All other demigods are pleased. Yata taror mula nishechanena tripyanta tatskanda bujopashaka. Then pranapahara chayatendriyanam tat eva sarva anamuchyatejya. So meaning very simple, nicely it's being put in this verse. This verse says that by watering the root of the tree, all the leaves, twigs, other branches, fruit, flowers, everything is nourished. Like how by watering, by feeding by taking the food through the mouth, when the food goes to stomach, all the bodily parts are nourished. Similarly, by worshipping Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, all other demigods are satisfied. Okay, so that's the verse. I think that's the verse 4:31-14. Now let's see the verse here, right there in the second canto, which is also an amazing verse. Etavad eva jignasyam tattva jignasunatmanah Anvaya Vyatirekabhyam Yatsyat Sarvatra Sarvada. What is this verse? Anybody knows?
Bhagavatam Chatush.
Yes. A person who is searching after the Supreme Absolute Truth, the personality of Godhead, must certainly search for it up to this, in all circumstances, in all space and time, and both directly and indirectly. So this is the point. So here in this verse, there are key words are there. One is Sarvatra Sarvada. Sarvatra Sarvada. And also there is another word which is making the point. Vyatirekabhyam. Indirectly. Yeah. Anvaya Vyatirekabhyam. Thank you for that. Anvaya Vyatirekabhyam. Anvaya is directly and Vyatirekabhyam is indirectly. So what does that mean? We will see. Srila Jiva Goswami is pointing out by referring to the Bhagavad Gita verses, two verses which we already discussed. So, Avidi Purvakam. Avidi Purvakam. So, Krishna is not happy with such a kind of a indirect worship. So, that's what is being pointed out here. And also, Krishna is explaining that. What is explaining? Aham hi sarva yajnanam bhokta cha prabhureva cha natumam api janati tatve natas chavantite. So he says that in case if you don't understand aham hi sarva, I am the actual owner, I am the actual proprietor, I am the actual bhokta, you don't understand that, and if you're going to try other means, then you're going to miserably fall down. So directly means only Krishna, and indirectly here refers to worship no one else other than Krishna. So it's something like, we hear the Smartavyam Sadatam Vishnu Vismartavyam, something similar to that. Okay. So now there is another famous verse which is in the Bhagavatam, which points out that we should, there is no need to, this point is also there. At the same time, we had so much discussion about taking shelter of Krishna and worshipping demigods. At the same time, we should not disrespect the demigods. That also Srila Jiva Goswami is pointing out. One should not disrespect other deities, but rather one should honor them because of the relationship with the Supreme Lord. Worship of the demigods as if they were independent of the Supreme Lord is eloquently and vehemently rejected in these words. Okay, now let's look into this verse, Srimad-Bhagavatam 6.9.22. Anybody remember what is this verse? It's a famous verse. I only remember the last line of it. No, the last verse I just remember always. We can in dreams also we can never cross an ocean by catching the dog's tail. Okay, so here the interesting part of this verse is spoken by whom? This verse is being spoken by the demigods themselves, the Supreme Lord. Avismitam tam paripurna kamam svenaiva labhena samam prashantam vishnopasarpatyaparam hibalisha swalangulena patitarti sindhum. Okay, now let's see the meaning of it. Free from material conceptions of existence and never wonderstruck by anything, the Lord is always jubilant and fully satisfied by his own spiritual perfection. He has no material designations and therefore he is steady and unattached. Okay, now the first part of the verse is glorifying the Lord's position, of his qualities. The second part of the verse says that Supreme Personality of Godhead is the only shelter of everyone. This is quite a strong statement, right? So that means for no one else we should take shelter of. Only we should take shelter of. Who is saying this? Demigods themselves are saying this. Anyone desiring to be protected by others is certainly a great fool, and great fool who desires to cross the sea by holding the tail of a dog. So this is a nice verse which gives the sum and substance that, and Prabhupada in the purport very nicely he points out that it's foolishness to take shelter of someone else other than the Lord. So if you take shelter of the Lord, what happens? How can you cross then if you take shelter of the Lord? Because such a big ocean becomes like that of the calf's hoof. Samashita ye pada pallava plavam mahatpadam punyesho murare bhavambudir vatsa parang padang yat vipadam natesham. So he says that big samsara, which is compared to the big ocean, becomes like that of the calf's hoof print when someone takes shelter of Murari. So that is the best thing to be done. Okay, these are some of the quotes from. Okay, here is a nice, in the second part, in the purport, there is one nice point I would like to share about the Lord's quality. So in the first part of the purport, in the first part of the two verses, the Lord's qualities are described. So Prabhupada he goes on to quote that. Thus the Lord is avismitam, without surprises. Though it is astonishing that without the Lord some try to cross the ocean of samsara, it is not astonishing to cross by taking shelter of the Lord. So now he is explaining, because the Lord makes it like calf's hoof print, that big ocean. Now Prabhupada further says in the purport, the Lord is always complete in his desires, along with the attainment of Swarupa of 7 types of sweetness. He has enjoyment bestowed through his Ladini Shakti. The Lord is gentle, tolerant of his devotees, though they commit seva prada, since he is affectionate to them. So this what I am reading is from the it's from the Vishwa Sagrada commentary. The Prashantam word is used in this particular shloka. So the Lord is very gentle. Now how he is gentle? So that means what? The Lord is very gentle, means Prashantam, he tolerates the devotees' mistakes. Even they move some seva prada, the Lord tolerates, doesn't make it a big thing. Now in this, I already in the beginning of the class I told you that the 7 qualities that the Lord possesses. So these are the qualities. He has beauty, he has a very wonderful fragrance, the sound of his voice is so you remember many times we heard when a devotee comes near the Lord, he touches the Lord, he faints, and then he wakes up, then he hears the sound of the Lord, and then that sound makes all senses are completely captivated on that sound. Then he faints. Again the Lord lifts him. Then the fragrance. So like that, the Lord is so beautiful. Then the jiva, after going through all the conditioning, and finally comes to the abode of the Lord. This is how the Lord receives the devotee. So that's explained by Srila Vishwa Chakravarti Thakur. So those are the things: beauty, fragrance, sound of his voice, youthfulness, tastiness, liberality, and mercy. So these are the 7 qualities that Madhurya Kadambini points out. Audharya and mercy, there is there is mercy. There is a slight difference. We'll discuss about that. It's very much interrelated. Let me complete it. Audharya is something, the Lord is very benevolent, and mercy also. So mercy is, because of the benevolency, he gives mercy. He could say something like that. When you are benevolent, means you are very broad-minded. That's the whole point here. You can see here that even you do some seva prada or this and that, the Lord doesn't. Now we should not take it for granted. Seva prada, the Lord is very much. Gaurita is very merciful. I can do. This is a concept some people are having. Gaurita is very merciful, so I don't have to do any offering. I can do in whatever way. We are dragging to another topic, but this is the point. Not that we should misuse that, but here and there, if he makes a mistake, Lord is not going to see, that day, you are supposed to offer at 2:10, but you offered at 2:10 and 25 seconds. I will not forget this for eternity. No, Lord is not like that. He just sees the real intention of the devotee, how much serious and how he is sincerely trying to please him. So the Lord, even here and there are apparently some things out of his mercy, out of his quality of benevolence, he just oversees all these things. In that sense, mercy and benevolence. Now, after having explained that whatever may be your situation, akama, sarvakama, mokshakama, so whatever kind of desires you may have, if we can engage in tivra bhakti, then we will be able to please the Lord by that, and one will be able to develop few devotional service. Now, how does it happen for the demigod worshippers or for anybody? How does it in reality happen? How it will happen? How one to engage in that tivra bhakti? How do we do that? Here in this verse there is a hint that is given. Etavan eva yajatam iha nishreya sodayah bhagavat yachalo bhavo yad bhagavata sangatah. All the different kinds of worshippers of multi-demigods can attain the highest perfectional benediction, which is spontaneous attraction unflinchingly fixed upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only by the association of the pure devotee of the Lord. So it's a very clear statement here. That's why it's an important verse to know. So Bhagavat Yachalo Bhavo, completely unflinching. Achalo, there is no here and there, mind being moving here and there, completely to get fixed up on the service of the Lord. That is possible by taking association of pure devotees. Yad Bhagavata Sangataha. So Srila Prabhupada in the purport, he gradually builds up again, explaining various kinds of enjoyments that are there, and how the demigods, whatever enjoyment they provide, that enjoyment is not permanent, that is temporary. And while explaining in this purport, Prabhupada also points out that how in the material world specifically, in the Western country, you see, there is no concept of, there were some ideas of demigod worships and all those things, in the sense accepting, some higher powers. In other religions also, there are, His Holiness Sohotra Maharaj in his book, he has shown traces of how in other places there are concepts of accepting authorities. But then over a period of time, gradually people will become turning into atheists. They don't want to accept any authority. They don't want to accept any demigod worship. If you accept demigod also, then you may have to follow certain rules and regulations. There are certain you are bound by certain rules and regulations. So they don't want to accept. Rather, the scientists, so-called modern thinkers, they have come to a stage. They have just completely proclaim that actually this worship of demigod is false, or it's all imaginary. Even the impersonalists, this is how they this Pancha Upasana and many of the what is the idea of the impersonalists? Their idea is like this one. Actually, everything is false. What is the famous statement of theirs? Brahma Satyam, Jagan Mithya. So everyone is Mithya. Okay. So this is their bogus philosophy. You can just with a hammer put a heavy shot on their head and then say, it's all false. It's all Mithya, we can say. This is how they proclaim. So Prabhupada is pointing out that in the purport. And Srila Prabhupada says that no, it is reality. It's not false, it's reality. The demigods, he is explaining the position. They are all different personalities in the universal plan, and they all have different responsibilities, and they are working in line in accordance with the Lord. Okay. Now Prabhupada also points out that that's why these people they do not have faith. They do not have faith in the demigods. They don't have faith on the different planets that are existing. There are so many planets, and we have knowledge only about some of the planets, but they don't have proper information. Prabhupada is pointing out in this purport also. Gross materialists do not believe in the existence of God or the demigods, nor do they believe that different planets are dominated by different demigods. They are trying to reach the nearest planets, Chandraloka or the moon, but even after much mechanical research, they have only very scanty information of the moon. And in spite of much false advertisement for selling land on the moon, the puffed up scientists or gross materialists are having difficulty reaching this nearby planet. And what is nearest planet? And what to speak of the other planets which they are unable even to count. So Srila Prabhupada gives a glimpse of it. Also, after having explained all those things, after pushing to accept the statements of the Vedas, which are very authenticated statements because it has been accepted by all great personalities like Shankara, Ramanuja, Madhva, Vishnu Swami, who are pure personalities, Nimbarka and Chaitanya. So Srila Prabhupada is suggesting that we should take into consideration the statements of the Bhagavad Gita to be true and try to follow the authenticity of Bhagavad Gita and make progress in life. So now Prabhupada finally he points out that unless the gross materialists or the worshippers of the temporary demigods come in contact with the transcendentalists like the pure devotee of the Lord, their attempts are simply a waste of energy. See, Prabhupada is using a very strong word, waste of energy. It's just waste of time. Only by the grace of the divine personalities, the pure devotees of the Lord, can one achieve pure devotion, which is the highest perfection of human life. Only a pure devotee of the Lord can show one the right way of progressive life. Otherwise, both the materialistic way of life, without any information of God or the demigods, and the life engaged in the worship of demigods, in pursuit of temporary material enjoyments, are different phases of phantasmagoria. So, Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, he is raising a question. After the worshippers of the various devatas have their desires fulfilled, what goal do they achieve? What goal they achieve? They achieve nothing. Why? Because their goal is all temporary. It will vanish in a short span of time. But if they receive mercy of the devotees, then they attain bhakti. The worshippers of the devatas will attain the highest good. Nishre yasodayaha. If an attitude of service to the Lord arises because of the association of devotees. This is the whole key here. Otherwise, no good arises because the devatas cannot bestow the highest good. So, if we can really refer to these verses and very step by step systematically explain to the worshippers of the demigods just how by worshipping Krishna all your desires will be fulfilled, how you can attain perfection. then there is a hope. So this is why the preachers are very busy trying to give the mercy of the Lord to everyone. Okay, so this is the gist of this verse. So how do one get association of devotees? That is what? What is our understanding? The association of devotees, how somebody will get? Is it conditional? Costless. This is the whole point. One will get spontaneously, someone will get. It is costless. Okay.
Random.
So now in this verse, by the association of devotees, what one gets? One gets transcendental knowledge. And that transcendental knowledge of devotional service is self-satisfying and it is attractive to everyone. That's the theme. Jnanam yad apratinivrita gunormi chakram atma prasada uta yatra guneshva sangaha kaivalya sammata patastvata bhakti yogaha ko nirvrito harikatasu ratim na kuryat. Transcendental knowledge in relation with the Supreme Lord Hari is knowledge resulting in the complete suspension of the waves and whirlpools of the material modes. See what happens? When the transcendental knowledge arises, then all the Mayic knowledge or the knowledge of the three modes of material nature or how the three modes is pulling us in different directions, that will be suspended. Micher Maya Boshe, Jacho Beshe, Kachu Huabu Dububai. Bhakti Thakur says that, by the influence of Maya, waves of Maya, we are dancing. Dancing according to the tunes of the waves of Maya. Such knowledge is self-satisfying due to its being free from material attachment and being transcendental. It is approved by authorities. Why the transcendental knowledge is so glorious? What is it that's something special about it? Because there is no tinge of the modes of the material nature. It is completely free from that. So the question is being raised here. What he says? Harikatasu ratim na kuryat. So who will not be attracted by this Harikatha? The whole science of getting that transcendental path, Srila Prabhupada explains by hearing Harikatha. It begins with Shravanam. So that pure devotional service begins with Shravanam. But that Shravanam, one gradually engages in the service of the Lord and starts to utilize everything in the service of the Lord. That's why Srila Prabhupada is pointing about this Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe. So by that process, one will not be bound up. That is being explained. And what happens when somebody is in that state of pure devotional service, by having received transcendental knowledge, Prabhupada points out that in such a state of affairs, one is not agitated by the waves of the material modes. There are different modes of material nature and all mundane functions in which a common man is very much interested or in which he takes part becomes unattractive for the devotee. This state of affairs is described herein as Pratinivrita Gunormi, and it is possible by Atma Prasada, or complete self-satisfaction without any material connection. So these two words are very significant here. Atma Prasada, so that's full self-satisfaction one gets because of the transcendental knowledge which is singing the glories of the Lord. So that is giving full satisfaction of the soul. That's why we can see on the other hand, all the other desires of the material world doesn't satisfy us. So that's so with that we will stop. I would like to read one other quote from Prabhupada's lecture. I have given many times this example that a car running at a speed of 60 miles and a cyclist running at the rate of 10 miles. But as soon as the cyclist catches the car, cyclist also runs in the 60 miles. So similarly, instead of trying to satisfy our senses independently, if we join with Krishna in his rasa dance, as cowherd boys, gopis, we join with Krishna, then you get the same pleasure as Krishna. This is Krishna consciousness. Don't try to enjoy independently. Just like here in this temple, every one of us trying to enjoy life in connection with Krishna. As soon as we are disconnected with Krishna consciousness, this kind of footstep or this kind of living, simple living will not satisfy you. You will be tossed by the waves of material nature as others are being. They are also eating. We are also eating. But in our eating, we have got full satisfaction and they have no satisfaction. They are eating sometimes here, sometimes there. This restaurant, that restaurant, this place. So many advertisements. So as soon as we dovetail our activities with Krishna, Krishna's activities, that is perfection. Jnanam yada apratihata ahetuki apratihata. That is real activity. Okay. Now, One may get confused here, or one may really be thinking, let's go and then dance with Krishna in the Rasa Leela. So what does that mean? As of now, how do we do that?
Reaching the moment.
Huh?
Reaching.
Let's do Rasa Leela. What? How do we do that? This Sankirtana mission of Lord Chaitanya, by participating in Sankirtana mission, is as good as participating in the Rasa Leela of the Lord. So that we have to remember. So whatever that we are doing in this Krishna conscious movement, that is perfectly allowing us entry to the spiritual world. Whatever that we are doing, we are free from the three modes whenever we are engaged in Krishna service, and that is giving us an opening to enter the spiritual abode. Okay. Any questions or comments or realizations? Okay, one point I just want you devotees to know. Sometimes some devotees read some books. They come to know about certain ways by which they perform some yajna. By certain way they can try to perform some puja to some demigods. This and that. Sometimes they become too curious. So similarly, now in the Bhagavatam also here it is many things are said. You want to worship this particular demigod, you want to worship that particular demigod, you do this, do that. Don't become too curious and then try to do that. Ultimately, you have to see the essence here. That the essence is that it is all condemned. It's all for the less intelligent people. It's all for those who are not have taken the path of bhakti. And those who are not, even those who have not taken the path of bhakti, suggestion given here is that take to the path of bhakti. Even if you want to satisfy your material desire, worship Vishnu. That's the message here. So there is no need to engage in demigod worship. Don't feel sentimental about it. Demigods are very happy when we start to engage in the service of the Lord. This is another key point to be understood. Demigods are pleased when someone engages in his service. Actually, that's what the demigods are looking at. Okay, now he is coming to me. Okay, I let him come gradually, I'll give him association. One day he has to leave, take up. But if you just constantly come to me, what he does? He cuts you off. That's what happens. So Prabhupada also quoted the story of this Ravana. He just went on disturbing Lord Shiva. Shiva said, I can't do anything, you go. Only Vishnu can do something about it. He cut him off. That you have to remember. Okay, so we'll stop here. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.